Welcome back to Project Daily Drive, and yep, today we're going to be starting to pull apart the engine. I'm really excited for this because I have never pulled apart a full engine before. I've done lawnmowers, I've meddled with motorbikes, but I've never pulled apart a proper car engine before. I'm very excited for this. Now, I just want to preface this just for some context for the next couple of episodes going forward. I wasn't very well when making the last couple of episodes. As I now know, I was actually suffering from a bit of nasty anemia. I'm a lot better now. I'm still kind of recovering from it, changes to my diet and all of that, but I was quite anemic, so if I'm a little bit low, I'm a little bit slow, and a little bit tired looking, that's why I was just not feeling very well, so I do apologise for that in advance. We love my health issues ongoing in this series. But anyway, so basically the plan is we're going to be taking apart the engine, stripping it down. Now, because of the fact that this is so much work, I've split this into two parts, because otherwise it'd be an unbearably long video. But the second part will be coming out a lot quicker than it normally would be, so stay tuned for that. Anyway, without further ado, the video's long enough, let's get into it. Let's see how I went pulling apart an engine. Oh god. Behold the A-Series engine. Yes, I know I look like a state. I just finished work like an hour ago. Anyway, here's the engine out of the car. Now, since I pulled it out since last episode, I've not actually done that much on it. I've literally just been soaking the whole thing in degreaser. It was coated both sides with oil. There's no major oil leaks, at least not that I'm aware of. It's all slow weeps. The top rocker cover gasket when I bought the car was leaking, the side gaskets were leaking, and of course the sump's leaking. And this has just meant that over years a slow, steady trickle of oil has just coated everything on the engine in this very nasty, gritty, sticky horribleness. And even more annoying, wherever there isn't a massive amount of oil, is rust. It's rusted badly. You can see at the front of the head, the timing chain cover, the pulley are all severely rusted because they're the ones that got hit with the salty water from when you've been driving, because this car stood for about a decade, only did about 1,000 miles in 10 years, and then some moron decided to daily drive it for years without keeping her in a garage. What idiot would do that? Anyway, it's in a state, but it's a good mechanical engine, so first things first, I need to get parts off of it so I can really start to get to the bottom of things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to strip off the electrics. I'm going to leave the distributor where it is because I'm actually not going to touch the distributor. I'm actually going to do that once the engine's back in the car so I know it's running and all of that, and then I'll swap it out. So I'm just going to get as much of it off as I can, and then we're going to go from there really. And so the teardown begins, and while I remove the electrics I can quickly explain about this video and the next one. I wasn't sure if I should go for a shorter kind of highlights reel or a longer in-depth video going through what happened. As you can tell, I decided to go for the longer in-depth video, which is why this is a part 1 of 2 and it's so long. But yeah, let me know if you like it, and let me know if you'd prefer it to be shorter. I can change content as we go. But anyway, removing the alternator here, which actually might need a bit of work, but right now I'm going to leave it to it. And I've left the distributor in place because I'm going to change that later down the line. And now I'm just going to be soaking the engine in a copious amount of degreaser because there's a thick layer of oil, and then removing pretty much anything I can. So the rusty fan blade and the water pump pulley come off relatively easily. They're the only parts that seemingly do. And then after spraying some more degreaser and using a paintbrush to really get it into places, I start to strip down a bit more of the car. And I do something really stupid, as you can see here. I wanted to remove the heater pipe, and I do that by uncracking some of the nuts that hold the head on. Don't do this. This is stupid. You're supposed to take these off in a specific order, and I didn't do that because I'm thick. I'm very lucky I didn't damage the head doing this. So yeah, that was silly. And then moved on to the thermostat, and I've been very careful with these nuts because if these studs had gone stuck and sheared, I would have been in trouble. However, speaking of stuck... Oh wow, that really doesn't want to come off. Get off, you... That's really... This continues for some time, and I assure you that this is definitely an omen of what was yet to come. So I moved on to doing something else by removing the manifold. Now, this manifold is looking really crusty and really nasty, but I'm leaving it alone because there's no holes in it, there's nothing particularly wrong with it, it just looks really horrible. The inside's a different story. Christ, look at the coke build-up. That's something to be concerned about. Oh no! Uh-oh. Okay. That is concerning. I'm going to have to send the head for a decoke. Oh, that's something I didn't want to have to pay for. Really though? There's like 5 mil of coke built up on all the exhaust ports. So ignoring my concerns about the coke build-up, I carry on by dismantling the engine. The rocker cover is next to come off, and as you can see, last time I took it off I put it back on with a hilarious amount of sealant. Probably an awful lot too much, and it still leaked. The state of this thermostat housing, I put that on 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Specifically, I got a mechanic to do it because I didn't want to undo these bolts lest they sheared off, because there are 2 places on this engine that the bolts shear off. It's either the bolts on the head here or these. Now, I didn't want to get them sheared off because I don't have the tools to remove a stuck bolt. Admittedly, I still don't. This thing, however, completely rusted on. Look at the state of that. Absolutely horrendous. Which makes me think that this thermostat's actually been leaking a bit. But what's concerning is the colour of the water and the thermostat itself. That's horrendous. Look at the build-up. Now this, I think, was caused by the fact that when I took this car to a mechanic a while ago for a service, this was when I wasn't very well. Usually I'd do a service myself, but I wasn't very well at the time. I was in uni. I got a mechanic to do it, and they put in a different type of antifreeze. They put pink antifreeze in, not blue, and I think it did a lot of damage to the internals of the engine. Which is, you know, great. I love that. I love mechanics not checking, but the thermostat, I mean, these are completely rusted on, which is a worry for me with these studs, because I would like to change them because they're quite rusty. That was also a brand new thermostat, and that is very horrible. First look at the internals of the engine. Oh god. First there's the sooted up exhaust ports, and now there's the sludgy water cooling system. Right, so the engine is getting more and more stripped down. I've already gone through an entire can of degreaser. You don't want to see what the floor of this workshop looks like. And I've got the engine to a point, and I've got some concerns now. You see, this is a good running engine, doesn't smoke. But what worries me about it is there's things I'm finding that are very indicative of the fact that the engine's not been looked after well. For instance, took the thermostat out, as you just saw. Now, during the time I owned the car, when I took this car for a service, somebody put pink antifreeze in. I didn't realise until the old radiator started leaking, and that might have done some damage to the internals. That's concerning. There's a lot of rust in there as well. So when I put this engine back together and run it, I'm actually going to put some rust stuff in the coolant, run it up and use that, and then change that out. But the heavy carbon build-up on the exhaust ports, the engine can't be breathing properly with that, so that needs doing. Decoking, not sure how to do that. There's actually rust on top of the rocker cover assembly. That's very worrying to me because of the fact that that's indicative of the fact that either water's been in the oil of this engine or the cap's been left off for a long period of time. I mean, I knew about those rust bits, but I'm starting to get a picture of an engine that might not have been looked after well, and considering that I'm supposed to, as of me saying this, be going on holiday with 3 of my friends in 8 weeks' time, Yeah. I'm a bit concerned now. I'm going to pull the head off, I think. Well, I need to pull the head off anyway because I'm going to change the head gasket, but I want to get the engine head off sooner rather than later because I need to know, basically. I need to know what state it's in. If there's scoring in the bores, I'm going to be very, very worried. Something to do and make sure of while you're doing this, of course, is make sure that you put all the bolts in marked Tupperwares, because I've forgotten to do that now 3 times, and I have 3 little Tupperwares. I have no clue what the bolts are for. But sometimes I don't label things. I have ADHD, I forget all the time. This is not an excuse. Because what happens if you don't label stuff is you forget where it goes. There's a lot of bolts that do specific things on a classic car, like for instance these. They're designed to be torqued down heavily to hold the rocker shaft on. Excuse me. And if you do not put them in the right place, you'll forget where they are, and you'll realise just as you put it together, hey, what happened to those bolts that I was supposed to put on the rocker shaft? So there's a Tupperware down here, which I'm going to put a label in that says rocker shaft bolts. So that's all these ones done now. I have to now get the back ones, and I can pull the rocker shaft. The push rods are stuck. There we go. And there we have a rocker shaft. Perfectly fine, nothing needs doing to it, so we'll put that down somewhere. All I'll do is I'll clean it a bit. Right. Need to change my gloves for this bit because these push rods I need to do something with. Okay, it's time to talk about push rods, specifically taking them out because there's a rule. Here's the thing. When this engine's running, it's full of oil. And that means that none of the parts actually touch each other on a molecular level. Or at least they shouldn't, because oil is always between them. However, parts wear on an engine, hence they wear out. It's a mechanical thing, things rubbing against each other, stuff wears out. But before it wears out, it wears in. You see, if you built a brand new engine with completely brand new parts all round, it would need wearing in. Something known as running in, which is very important for an engine. Most of the times it's done at the factory, but back in the day you'd have to run in your own car. And that's creating just a tiny bit of wear on every part so that it runs better, creates a much smoother surface together. And that's with all of these push rods. You see, they're in a specific order. That's the front of the engine, this is the back. The front of the engine, that's there obviously because that's where the front is in a Morris Minor. If this was sideways, the back of the engine's always where the input comes out. I believe anyway, but it might vary from engine to engine. So this is cylinder 1, cylinder 2, cylinder 3, cylinder 4. And you've got push rods 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I can take these out and throw them in a box and put the engine back together and it could be fine. However, they're all worn to each specific part. And what that means is, if I put them back in a random order, sure it'll work, the engine will run, but they won't have worn in. And you'll have to run it in again. And it won't run quite right. So when you take push rods out of a push rod engine, which this one is, you're always going to make sure they go back in the right order. Hence this little tool. You may see, I don't know if you can see because the lighting isn't very good, but there's a lot of numbers, 1 to 8, and a lot of holes. And what I'm going to do is, starting at engine piston 1, so I'm going to take push rod 1, 2, 3, all the way to 8, and put it in this, which is just a bit of folded up cardboard. And this can be stored, so that when I go to put the engine back together, I know which order the push rods go in. It'd help if I'd done the holes just a tiny bit larger, but never mind. 2. 3. These have got some really old oil on them, by the way, which is a bit worrying. 4. 5. 6. 7. And finally 8. Although they're pretty manky, but that's what's concerning me about the engine. Right then, it's time for the job that I have legitimately been dreading since I bought this car over 4 years ago. I've never taken the head off. Oh god, here we go. So this should just come off. It would help actually if I'd removed the bolts in the first place. Wait a minute. Silly me, I had forgotten to remove some of the bolts, as you can see here, and the head was still held in place. I've never actually taken an engine head off before. I've seen it done, so this is very much new to me, and I am very much excited and very nervous to see what it's going to be like underneath, because anything could be here. I'm just hoping it's good and not horrifying. Pull that off. Oops. I might have plugged up that galley just a bit there. So I remember I used the wrong sealant, and yeah, oops. And also there's a bit there. Don't look at that. Now I've got to get the engine head off. Yeah, bit of gentle persuasion. There we go. Oh, bloody Nora, of course, the heater hose. So, let me explain this issue. That heater hose is stuck because the brackets are so rusted, I physically can't get it off. So I'm actually just going to cut straight through the rubber hose. 1 second. Right, that's sliced enough. Using an old Scout's knife. See if we can get the engine head off now. No! My handle! That's what you get for buying the cheapest engines on Amazon, innit? Handles that fall off. I think that's loose. Only one way to find out. Yep, it's loose. Okay, I am now frightened. Okay. God, this is a heavy bit of iron. Jesus wept. I don't want to put anything underneath it because I don't want it to be damaged. Come on! It's off! Bloody Nora! Where are we going to put it? Okay. Oh. That's not a healthy looking engine. All of the oil, look, all of the water lines are clogged. That one's gone, that one's gone. These are partially blocked. No wonder the heat was crap, because the water pump's clogged. Okay. Okay, old girl. You've not been well looked after, have you? Where's my plumber's pliers? I want to get the engine turned over. Well, that is some. Thank God, that's some good news. There's no heavy scoring, which is what I was really concerned about, because that would have been a broken piston ring. The actual bores don't look too bad, which means I've kind of dodged a bullet here. So, sit rep on the engine. Oh dear. So, there's good news and bad news. The good news, and the main good thing, is that the bores are in really good condition. There's no heavy scratches, there's no heavy scoring. There is even still a bit of the evidence of cross-hatching, so that might just be a trick of the light though, but there's nothing too concerning in there. One of my biggest fears was that there's going to be really heavy scoring, which is apparently indicative of a very worn-out engine. So that's the good side. You notice that this thing is covered in oil, which means that the head gasket's probably been leaking for a while, which might explain why the entire engine is coated in oil, among other reasons. So there's a couple of things, however, which are not so good, but the good bit is that because we've caught these ahead of time, these are things that could have easily killed the engine, and I'm amazed that this thing never overheated, because all of the water galleries are really furred up. My favourite, there's some pretty nasty pieces of rust trapped in some of them. For instance, that one, and this one. But more concerningly, that one's blocked up, that one is blocked up, and my absolute favourite is that the little pipe here for the head, completely blocked. Completely blocked. That is completely solid. So, yeah, I got away with that. Are there actually water galleries under that? Yeah, there is, I think. Hang on, let me get a better tool on that. I say a better tool. Let's get a different screwdriver so I can poke at it a bit. Ooh. Oh no, this head gasket was about to fail. And that's great. I had an almost failed head gasket there. And there's nothing on that one. So that's good. What we've got here are the water galleries were getting very furred up. There's a good example. There's a bit of rust. But just a bit of cleaning. A lot of cleaning. So much cleaning. I'll be able to get them clear. The big concern, of course, being that water pump was bad. But I knew it was bad anyway, so I've got a brand new one to drop on. And of course, this head gasket. Yeah, it's failed there completely. Love it. Okay. Probably welded itself on here. Right, okay. Back to cleaning, I suppose. There's always one bolt that just does not want to play ball, and it's this one. God, that does not want to come off. Oh, it's off. Shit off. Cool. Okay. Cool. I'm fine.
Spoiler alert, I was not fine. Not at all. This 5-minute job ended up being hours and hours of fiddling about. You see, what I was not aware of at the time is that the water pump had been leaking and the bolt had rusted solidly onto the water pump. So no matter how much I hit the water pump, no matter what I did, it wouldn't budge at all. I tried to put wedges in, I tried to pull it, I ended up having to do something else just because I was so wound up with this one thing, so I just pulled off one of these panels to have a look. But no, the water pump still would not budge whatsoever. I put things into the water pump spout and it just broke off. I tried hitting it with chisels and it just broke. Hitting it with multitudes of different hammers and slowly losing my patience. This is several different clips here of me just slowly getting angrier and angrier and angrier. And eventually I gave up for the night and I came back at it the next day filled with an awful lot of coffee and an awful lot of rage and just drilled it out with a drill.
Move, please. Oh, thank God for that. Get off. Jesus Christ. Bloody hell. Now I've got to deal with all them metal shavings, great. You know, after all that hitting, all that anger, and literally drilling out half the thing, do you know what's the most upsetting part? It's loose. It just rusted in so much that it was the bloody pump holding it on. I've never been so angry in my entire life. Christ. Right. If you're wondering how to take the studs out, very important, what you do is you lock two nuts together and then you try and undo the bottom nut. The friction of the two nuts together will let you undo. It helps if you don't drop your spanner, but it'll let you undo your nut. I'm going to be replacing all of these for the sake of... Most of them came out anyway. Some of them were rusty. Dropping everything today. This is laborious job number 4,700 and whatever. The head gasket is stuck. Part of it. The actual head gasket broke apart because it had been leaking and lots of oil had gotten smeared. So I have to now get the remains of the head gasket off with a tool designed to remove it. Extraordinarily laborious job, and there's no quick way of doing it. Literally sit here and scrape the remains of the head gasket off for however long it takes. Mechanics is not all it's cracked up to be, especially if you don't have a fully equipped workshop. And I do apologise for the hail. This is our third storm in like a week in the UK. We are suffering. Several trees have come down, the economy is collapsing. People are still expected to go to work. The usual. Right. Time to get the sump off. I think that's the next project. So now we've got to spin the engine round. Now, I will admit, I'm sure that there's already comments telling me I've mounted this engine on the stand too high. You're right, I have. I should have taken this back plate off and spun it round on bolts more about here instead of down here. I'm not making that mistake again, but it's already on the engine stand. But this is going to make it quite scary when I flip it round because it's very top heavy. This is still about 50-60 kilos of steel that I've now got to spin on my own. This can only go poorly. This is why a lot of the really good quality engine stands have a winch so you can spin them round on a ratchet. I don't have that. Okay. Right then. Make sure you got a place for all of your bolts to go. Every single one of these bolts has got a little kind of oval washer on them. So these are all going to get degreased before going back on. Because like hell am I buying new bolts if these are alright. I've done that enough, it's cost me a fortune. I'm already replacing the head bolts because some of them are chewed up. So I need to make sure these all go safely off. There we go. Right, now I can remove the sump. Should be just a simple amount of tapping it, break the seal and pull it off. Now, this sump's not in the best condition, I'm going to be honest. There's some great big whacking dents on it. There's one here, there's one there, and it's also not flat on the bottom like it should be. There's a dent here as well. That's basically potholes, or catch-in curbs. Now, this sump does not leak, I think. The only concern I've got is this bit here, which I think may be a leak. If this is a leak, I'm going to have to get a new one. Because that is quite nasty bit of damage. I'm really hoping it doesn't leak, but because I'm going to be cleaning this sump out completely, I need to make sure that damage is just a dent. It looks like it's just a dent, but that could be a pinhole. Could be a pinhole leak in there. I don't know. I'm going to do a water test. Well, not a water test, but I'm going to fill it with degreaser. If there's any holes, it'll pour out. Right, let's give it just a tap. That's. Let's see if I can just get something to lever under here. Fun fact, you're actually supposed to do this every 24,000 miles. You're supposed to drop the sump and clean it out. If anyone actually does this regularly, please tell me, because I don't believe anyone actually does. Yeah, every 24,000 miles you're supposed to drop the sump and clean it out. I have never done it. Okay, there we go. Right, actually before I take it off I should mention a bet that's going on between me and some friends. It's the amount of sludge in the bottom. I reckon there's half an inch of sludge in the bottom of here. One of my mates reckons it's an inch. We shall see. Well, well, well. Did not expect that. That is a surprisingly clean sump. I mean, there's a great big pile of sludge, but that's not bad. It's not bad at all. Finally, some good news. Only a bit of sludge in there. Way, hey, excellent. Finally, I've got some good news. This engine's been a nightmare. I've got some for you. Right, and the oil pickup filter is not bad either. Huh. I'll be damned. Oh, it's really made my day, that. Now, there's something I can show you now that the sump is off, which is how the engine works. Where is my spanner? Where's that big socket? Right. This is the guts of the engine. This moves quite quickly. I'll just do this with my hands to show you. That's it. That's an engine. The pistons go up and down. You can't really see it, but there's a camshaft in there that pushes up and down on cam lifters, which hits the push rods, which moves the engine. Now, that's actually cheered me up quite a bit, because I was expecting this to be clogged and there to be quite a lot of sludge. The rest of the engine was pretty indicative. It was in bad shape, but not bad. Something I will do, however, is I will take off the oil pickup and clean it. Makes sense as I'm here. Technically, I should also strip and rebuild the oil pump. I have no idea where the oil pump is. I'm assuming it's buried deep down somewhere. There's the drive there for the distributor, but I have not the foggiest idea. I think the oil pump's attached to the distributor. I'll have to check the workshop manual. I'm not going to do that, however, as I'm planning on rebuilding my spare engine anyway. Now, all I need to do is jam a bit of wood in there and see if I can get this pulley off. And that's going to make my life a hell of a lot easier, so I'm going to try that. Okay. This pulley has a nut on it, as we've seen, torqued onto the power of 1,000 suns, and it's rusted on there, and I cannot get it off. This is apparently the way you're supposed to do it in a home workshop, is that you literally stick a bit of wood in there to stop damaging the con rods, prevent the crankshaft from moving, and you undo it like so. That is what I've been told, and I don't trust it in the slightest, but nevertheless, will it undo?
The answer is no, by the way. It would not come off. And believe you me, I tried everything. I tried using a breaker bar, I tried using heat, I tried using an entire can of penetrating fluid, and this bolt would not budge. It's so heavily torqued down and so rusted in place, nothing worked. I put a spanner on there and hit it with a hammer. No dice. I even put big poles on my spanners to try and do it, and it just bent the poles. I bent my breaker bar. It's permanently bent because I put so much force onto getting this knot off. It would not budge. I heated it up till glowing and then let it cool down and tried to remove it. It would not budge. I heated it up till glowing and then tried to remove it and burnt my finger and it wouldn't budge. Eventually I gave up and I got my mitts on an impact driver. And you'll never guess what happened.
That is disturbing. Right. Here we go. If this doesn't get this off, nothing will. Let's go. Really? Okay, I think this video is going on for long enough. I think that's enough for now. Perfect stopping point for the first part. The engine's about dismantled as I'm going to get it, except for the timing chain, which I'm sorry, I can't do it. It's beyond my limits here in the workshop. I'm going to have to put the engine back in the car and take it to a mechanics, get them to do it, because that ain't coming off. But apart from that, the engine's about as dismantled as I want to get it. There's no point touching the pistons or the crankshaft or anything like that, because they are fine. They don't need any work. You know, there's no scoring or anything like that. This is mostly a cosmetic refresh and a full service, you know, new bits all round. That's the main job here. So yeah, next episode, obviously we're going to be putting it back together and then putting it in the car and seeing if she starts up. Just want to talk about a couple of things before we end. A little bit of an announcement, very quiet, and I'm not sure how to do it. I set up a Patreon a while ago, kind of quietly, but I have a Patreon where I upload all my videos a day early. I upload them 24 hours early, and I'm also going to be starting to do behind the scenes stuff. These videos are getting quite long, and I know that people don't necessarily want to see an hour-long video, so I'm actually going to be doing kind of behind the scenes stuff that got cut at Project Daily Drive up on Patreon. So if you want to see that, for instance, last video, the original cut was over an hour long, and I cut it way down, but there's a much longer and more methodical video which I might be putting up on my Patreon. That sort of stuff. And behind the scenes, a lot of the jokes, I do a lot of editing jokes with my mates that don't make it into the series that I'll stick up on there as well. So it's kind of behind the scenes and 24 hours early. So if you want to check that out, my Patreon, link's in the description. I would be delighted. Somebody actually found it and followed it. I never announced it anywhere, I just kind of set it up. But yeah, that's actually my Patreon. Also, I have a Ko-fi link. If you want to leave a tip, it just helps out the channel. I really appreciate it. I know I'm not a massive channel, so those little tips, they just kind of make me day. I really do appreciate them. So yeah, that's very kind of you. Okay, so next episode, which should be coming out fairly soon. I don't want to promise anything because I know what I'm like, but that'll be coming out before next month. I'm trying to upload Project Daily Drive the first Saturday of every month now. However, I will be doing the next videos more regularly because I've got a bit of a backlog of videos to get through. I don't want a video that I filmed in April to be coming out in September, which, you know, that's daft. So yeah, thank you ever so much for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know how you enjoyed this video. Would you prefer these videos to be shorter and quicker, or longer and more methodical? I do these videos for people who watch them, so you're the boss here. Please let me know. So anyway, I hope you all have... That's my phone going off. I hope you all have a lovely day. I hope you're all keeping very safe. And yeah, I hope to see you soon in the next video. Have yourselves a lovely day. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Like 3 years ago. How has it managed to weld itself on in 3 years? One of those was spent not driving. Forgot, speeding makes the thermostat housing stick on the engine. I'm going to be here all day hitting it with a hammer.